Certainly. Below is the exact original English text you provided, written out again 100% word for word as requested. The 5 most dangerous women in the Bible. The Bible features numerous women who sinned and acted contrary to God's commandments, but few were as evil and dangerous as those you are about to learn about. In this episode, you'll see women who committed heinous atrocities against the helpless, the innocent, and God's people. Without further delay, let's begin, starting from the least to the most dangerous and evil woman on our list. Number 5, Potiphar's wife. Potiphar's wife lived in ancient Egypt during a period when Joseph, one of Jacob's sons, had been sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. Joseph was purchased by Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard, a high-ranking and influential position. Recognizing Joseph's administrative skills and God's favor upon him, Potiphar entrusted Joseph with managing his household. Potiphar's wife is infamous for attempting to seduce Joseph. The Bible describes her as a woman driven by lust, boredom, or possibly a desire for control, who persistently tried to entice Joseph into sleeping with her. Genesis 39:7-10 details this event. And after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except you because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her, or to be with her. When Joseph repeatedly rejected her advances out of respect for both Potiphar and God, Potiphar's wife resorted to deception. One day, finding the house empty of other servants, she grabbed Joseph by his garment and demanded that he sleep with her. Let me know if you'd like the next part transcribed or translated. Certainly. Below is the 100% verbatim version of the content you provided, written out exactly as requested. Joseph fled, leaving his garment behind. In anger and humiliation, she falsely accused Joseph of attempting to sexually assault her, using his garment as supposed evidence. Genesis 39:11-18 recounts this event. Joseph was the primary victim of her deceit. Her false accusation led Potiphar to imprison Joseph, despite his innocence. Genesis 39 verse 19-20 states, "As soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, 'This is the way your servant treated me,' his anger was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in prison." The lies and malicious actions of Potiphar's wife had significant repercussions for Joseph, but ultimately they led to the fulfillment of God's greater plan. While imprisoned, God continued to favor Joseph, granting him goodwill in the eyes of the prison warden. Joseph's integrity and administrative abilities allowed him to rise within the prison hierarchy. Genesis 39:21-23 states, "But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison." Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. Joseph's time in prison became a pivotal moment in his life. Eventually, he interpreted dreams for Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker, which led to his interpreting Pharaoh's dreams later on. This resulted in Joseph's rise to power, becoming the second most powerful man in Egypt, and overseeing preparations for an impending famine, Genesis 41. In the end, the evil actions of Potiphar's wife unintentionally set the stage for Joseph's ascension and the salvation of many, including his own family, during the severe famine. While Potiphar's wife faced no known direct punishment, God's divine plan prevailed, demonstrating his ability to transform even the most malicious intentions into opportunities for his greater purpose and glory. Unfortunately, Potiphar's wife's legacy of false sexual assault allegations persists to this day. Let me know if you'd like the next section written out. Certainly. Here is the 100% verbatim version of the text you provided, written exactly as it is. Noah 4, Delilah. "Many people commit evil, but fewer revel and thrive in it. Delilah was one of those individuals. Her story is set during the tumultuous period of the Judges, a time when Israel frequently clashed with neighboring peoples, notably the Philistines. Delilah lived in the valley of Sorek, a region closely associated with the Philistines, who were enemies of Israel. Despite her clear connection with the Philistines, Delilah's exact nationality is not specified in the Bible. However, her actions clearly align her with the Philistine leaders against Israel. Delilah is best known for her role in the downfall of Samson, one of Israel's judges, renowned for his extraordinary physical strength. Desperate to subdue Samson, the Philistine rulers saw Delilah as their opportunity and bribed her with a substantial amount of silver to discover the secret of Samson's strength. Judges 16:5. Driven by greed, Delilah agreed to their plan. Delilah persistently nagged and manipulated Samson, attempting to coax the secret of his strength from him. Despite several false answers, her relentless persistence eventually wore Samson down. Judges 16, verse 16 to 17 describes her pursuit vividly. And when she pressed him hard with her words day after day, and urged him, his soul was vexed to death. And he told her all his heart and said to her, "A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazirite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man." After learning the truth, Delilah took advantage of Samson's vulnerability. She lulled him to sleep on her lap and called a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair, stripping him of his God-given strength. Samson became a tragic victim of Delilah's betrayal. Once his hair was cut, he lost his strength. The Philistines seized this opportunity to capture Samson, gouged out his eyes, and imprisoned him in Gaza, forcing him to grind grain in a prison mill. Judges 16:21. This was a profound humiliation for a judge of Israel. Delilah received a substantial reward from the Philistine leaders for her betrayal, totaling 1,100 pieces of silver from each leader. Judges 16, verse 5. This bribe illustrates the high value the Philistines placed on defeating Samson. Although Delilah's immediate fate after these events is not detailed in the Bible, her actions had significant consequences. During Samson's captivity, his hair began to grow back, symbolizing the return of his strength. At a Philistine celebration in the temple of Dagon, Samson prayed to God to restore his strength one last time. God granted his request, and Samson pulled down the temple pillars, collapsing the structure and killing many Philistines along with himself. Judges 16:28-30. Samson's final act avenged his suffering and dealt a significant blow to Philistine leadership. Although Delilah is not mentioned again, her role in the story remains pivotal, highlighting themes of betrayal, deceit, and the severe consequences of aligning oneself against God's chosen people. Delilah's story serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of greed and manipulation. Let me know if you'd like the next section transcribed too. Certainly. Below is the 100% verbatim version of the text you provided, exactly as requested. Her betrayal caused Samson's suffering, but ultimately contributed to the downfall of the Philistine rulers, who sought to exploit her treachery for their gain. Unfortunately, Delilah left behind a legacy of evil that many continue to follow today. Number 3, Herodias. This is one of the saddest stories in the Bible. Herodias was a prominent member of the Herodian dynasty, a ruling family in Judea known for often intermarrying to consolidate power. Initially, she was married to Herod Philip, her half-uncle. She later left him to marry his half-brother, Herod Antipas, the Tetrarch of Galilee and Perea. This marriage was politically and personally controversial, involving the divorce of her first husband and marriage to his brother, which was considered unlawful according to Jewish standards. Herodias is infamous for her bitter grudge against John the Baptist, a revered prophet. John publicly denounced her marriage to Herod Antipas as unlawful according to Jewish law. Mark 6:18-19. Furious and humiliated by John's condemnation, Herodias sought revenge. Her opportunity arose during Herod Antipas's birthday celebration. Herodias manipulated her daughter, Salome, into performing a dance that greatly pleased Herod and his guests. Delighted by her performance, Herod promised to grant Salome any wish she desired, up to half of his kingdom. Mark 6:22-23. Prompted by her mother, Salome requested the head of John the Baptist on a platter, Mark 6:24-25. Although distressed by the request because he respected John, Herod felt compelled to honor his oath made in front of his guests and ordered John's immediate execution. Mark 6:26-27. John the Baptist became the tragic victim of Herodias' vengeful scheme. Known for his ascetic lifestyle and fearless proclamation of God's truth, John was beheaded in prison. His head was brought to Salome on a platter, who then presented it to her mother, Herodias. Mark 6:27-28. This gruesome act silenced John, but underscored the ruthless nature of Herodias' vendetta. Herodias faced no immediate consequences in the biblical narrative. However, her life was far from trouble-free. Her husband, Herod Antipas, eventually faced political downfall when the Roman Emperor Caligula exiled him to Gaul, modern-day France, due to accusations of conspiracy and disloyalty. This exile marked the end of Herod Antipas's political power and influence. The Bible does not detail Herodias' fate after her husband's exile. Nonetheless, Herodias' actions left a lasting impression as an epitome of treachery and vindictiveness. Her story serves as a powerful reminder of the destructive power of unchecked anger and the extreme lengths to which it can drive a person. Interwoven with themes of power, manipulation, and the consequences of unrighteous behavior, Herodias' manipulation of her daughter and her successful plot against a righteous man demonstrate her cunning and ruthless nature. Though her final days are not chronicled in the Bible, her legacy remains one of infamy, illustrating the perilous path of vengeance and the moral decay accompanying the abuse of power. Let me know if you'd like the next section written out as well. Certainly. Here's the 100% verbatim version of the content you provided. Number 2, Athaliah of Israel. Athaliah was the daughter of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel of Israel, a lineage notorious for idolatry and ruthless rule. Her marriage to Jehoram, king of Judah, created an alliance between the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. Athaliah's influence became especially significant after the death of her husband, Jehoram, and during the brief reign of her son, Ahaziah, as king of Judah. Upon Ahaziah's death, Athaliah's thirst for power became evident as she sought to secure her position as the most powerful figure in the kingdom. Her most infamous act was the ruthless seizure of power following her son's death. To eliminate any threats to her rule, she ordered the massacre of all potential royal heirs. This gruesome purge claimed many lives, aiming to ensure that no one from the royal lineage could challenge her authority. The Bible documents this horrific event in 2 Kings 11 verse 1-3. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal family. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram and sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the king's sons who were being put to death. She put him and his nurse in a bedroom. So they hid him from Athaliah so that he was not put to death. And he remained with her for 6 years, hidden in the house of the Lord, while Athaliah reigned over the land. Unbeknownst to Athaliah, her grandson Joash was saved by his aunt Jehosheba, who hid him in the temple of the Lord. This courageous act preserved the Davidic line, which Athaliah had sought to annihilate. The primary victims of Athaliah's ambition were members of the royal family and potential heirs to the throne. Her merciless slaughter extended even to her own grandchildren and other members of the royal household. The extent of her cruelty highlights her relentless pursuit of power and complete disregard for familial bonds or moral decency. Athaliah's reign of terror lasted 6 years, during which she ruled Judah with an iron fist, likely continuing the idolatrous practices she had inherited from her parents, Ahab and Jezebel. Her tyrannical rule eventually provoked resistance from those loyal to the true royal lineage. The high priest Jehoiada orchestrated a coup to overthrow Athaliah and restore rightful leadership to Judah. With the support of military leaders and temple guards, he carefully planned and executed the rebellion. When Joash was 7 years old, Jehoiada revealed him to the people as the rightful king. The people of Judah, weary of Athaliah's tyranny, rallied behind Joash. Let me know if you'd like the final part of the series copied as well. Certainly. Below is the 100% verbatim version of the content you provided. Taught to 2 Kings 11 verse 12-16 describes the dramatic events that followed. Then he brought out the king's son and put the crown on him and gave him the testimony. They proclaimed him king and anointed him, and they clapped their hands and said, "Long live the king." When Athaliah heard the noise of the guard and of the people, she went into the house of the Lord to the people. And when she looked, there was the king standing by the pillar, as was the custom, and the captains and the trumpeters beside the king, and all the people of the land rejoicing and blowing trumpets. And Athaliah tore her clothes and cried, "Treason! Treason!" Then Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains who were set over the army, "Bring her out between the ranks, and put to death with the sword anyone who follows her." For the priest said, "Let her not be put to death in the house of the Lord." So they laid hands on her, and she went through the horses' entrance to the king's house, and there she was put to death. Athaliah was executed, ending her brutal reign. Her death marked the fall of her family's influence over Judah and the restoration of the Davidic lineage through Joash. Her life and actions serve as a stark warning about the corrupting influence of power and the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition. Under the guidance of Jehoiada, the people of Judah returned to the worship of the Lord, and Joash began his reign, symbolizing the renewal of godly kingship in Judah. Jezebel. If you thought Athaliah was brutal, wait until you hear about Jezebel. Jezebel was the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, who was both a monarch and a high priest of Astarte, a pagan deity. Her marriage to Ahab, king of Israel, was a political alliance that brought significant cultural and religious influence into Israel. Jezebel was a fervent worshiper of Baal, a Canaanite god, and she actively promoted the worship of Baal and Asherah throughout Israel, leading the nation into deep idolatry and apostasy. Her actions were marked by extreme wickedness and a determined effort to replace the worship of Yahweh with Baal worship. She aggressively promoted Baal worship, erecting altars and temples dedicated to Baal and Asherah. Jezebel influenced King Ahab and the people of Israel to turn away from Yahweh, leading the nation into widespread idolatry, as recorded in 1 Kings 16:31-33. Her efforts were not only religious, but also political, as she sought to consolidate power by aligning Israel's religious practices with those of her homeland. One of Jezebel's most infamous acts was orchestrating the murder of Naboth, a righteous man who owned a vineyard that King Ahab desired. When Naboth refused to sell his vineyard, Jezebel devised a sinister plan. She wrote letters in Ahab's name, instructing the elders and nobles of Naboth's city to falsely accuse him of blasphemy and treason. Let me know if you'd like the continuation of Jezebel's story transcribed as well. Certainly. Below is the 100% verbatim version of the content you provided. As a result, Naboth was stoned to death and Ahab seized the vineyard. 1 Kings 21:7-16. This act revealed Jezebel's ruthless nature and her willingness to use deceit and murder to achieve her goals. During her cruel reign over Israel, one man dared to stand against Jezebel and her evil regime, Elijah. After Elijah's dramatic victory over the prophets of Baal, sponsored by Jezebel on Mount Carmel, where he proved the power of Yahweh and had the false prophets killed, Jezebel was furious. She vowed to kill Elijah in retaliation, forcing him to flee for his life. 1 Kings 19:1-2. Jezebel's relentless pursuit of Elijah revealed her deep hatred for the prophets of Yahweh and her determination to eliminate anyone who opposed her religious agenda. She ordered the massacre of many of Yahweh's prophets, seeking to exterminate those who remained faithful to God. This persecution created a climate of fear and oppression among the faithful in Israel. 1 Kings 18:4. Obadiah, a faithful servant of the Lord, hid 100 prophets in caves to protect them from Jezebel's wrath. Jezebel's reign of terror left a trail of innocent victims across the land of Israel. But her wickedness did not go unpunished. The prophet Elijah prophesied her death as divine judgment, declaring that dogs would devour her body by the wall of Jezreel. 1 Kings 21:23. This prophecy underscored the severity of her crimes and the certainty of God's retribution. Jezebel met her gruesome end when Jehu, a commander anointed by the prophet Elisha to destroy Ahab's house, arrived in Jezreel. In a final act of defiance, Jezebel adorned herself and mocked Jehu from a window. Jehu ordered her to be thrown down, and she was trampled by horses. Her body was left to be eaten by dogs, with only her skull, feet, and hands remaining, thus fulfilling Elijah's prophecy in a vivid and horrifying manner. 2 Kings 9:30-37. Jezebel's legacy is one of profound wickedness and idolatry. Her name has become synonymous with treachery and immorality, serving as a cautionary tale about the dangers of leading others away from God. Her story is a stark reminder of the destructive power of sin and the certainty of divine justice. In conclusion, both Jezebel and Athaliah serve as powerful cautionary examples of the consequences of unchecked ambition, deceit, and idolatry. May we learn from their stories to seek righteousness and faithfulness in our lives. By cultivating humility, integrity, and devotion to God, we can avoid the destructive paths these women took. Their lives remind us of the importance of obedience to God's commandments and the enduring values of love, justice, and faith. Instead of following their example, may we strive to live in a way that honors God, promotes goodness, and leads to a life of fulfillment and divine favor. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to this channel. God bless you. Amen.